Cosmic Sandbox, broadcasting from time space with Matt and Jason and Geoff.
What's up?
Hello, 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 everybody.
All right. So there's a lot going on right now, and we decided to talk about some of these things. And Matt was telling me that they found some alien body that I want to hear about. Jason has some ideas on Nazis. Nazis in World War II and UFOs.
Do I got some ideas?
He's got some stuff there.
Yeah,
And
I got some ideas.
This is Geoff here. I'm just going to jump in when it feels right. So I don't know where to start. I kind of want to start with Jason. I want him to tell me about these Nazi UFOs.
Oh, man. Okay, so a little while back, I remember listening to, I think it was Coast to Coast AM 710 here in Los Angeles. And who's the host again?
They're different
Nori.
hosts. Yeah, probably Nori. I think.
Yeah, Nori's the host of the show.
One.
He had this woman on, and she was talking about basically, I don't know if it was a book that she was writing or just a paper she was publishing about what happened at the infamous Roswell crash in 1947-48. She had basically surmised that what we had recovered there was not extraterrestrial at all. It was essentially Earth-made from, just another country, and it was just some highly advanced technological piece of aviation that we'd never seen before. And what it boiled down to is that it was possibly either Russian or German wing craft. Now, what they talked about as far as a wing craft being, the shape was just something that was a little bit unorthodox to what we'd seen before. It was more typical in the classic saucer shape that we've all seen, and that it had a couple of pilots in it. And she was telling the story that, this huge cover-up was just essentially about recovering technology that we just hadn't really seen yet, but was not extraterrestrial whatsoever.
Was that Linda Moulton Howe?
I don't know. I can't recall her name. This was probably over 2 years ago. I remember hearing this on the radio, and she basically just said, that's what the Roswell crash was. It had nothing to do with extraterrestrials whatsoever, that it was a recovery of craft, and the craft was actually terrestrial. It was made by, at that point, either the Nazis or potentially it was old Nazi or German technology, because referring to what I'm talking about, we had just seen a video that Geoff had put up, an email to all of us on YouTube. Does anybody know the link or the title of that? What that was? But it was essentially a small little 45-minute video on YouTube that talks about the basically the acquisition of the Germans to get higher, more advanced technology to essentially, obviously, you knew the plot in the early 20th century there, what they wanted to do, but through occult means, through scientific discovery, through just searching the planet over and under, they somehow, potentially, possibly found a way how to create advanced flying discs. And, with this all being said, that's why it was interesting to me when I heard this, because with the Roswell story, I can't tell you how many different versions you hear. You hear the one version where, it's we now have electromagnetic radars that we can shoot down alien craft, and now we've got this thing that can do that, and now they're coming from another dimension, and we somehow mess with their frequency when they came through and they crashed. And now with all these stories, you just never know which one to take as value, which one is the one that speaks to you. So it was just interesting to hear this, and then when we saw this YouTube clip, it was even more interesting because it started to back it up with a lot of facts as far as what their research had entailed, going all the way back to the early 20th century when they were essentially looking around Antarctica. And
the Germans.
Yeah.
I think the Germans, what I always thought was cool was how these different organizations and secret societies and countries, they tend to have this fascination with the occult and with mysticism, and it's downplayed in the public. And even with the Skull and Bones Society, you see how they basically talk to other people, and they say, "Oh, it's just some silly secret. It's just a silly thing." They just totally downplay it, like it's just it's not a big deal, but they take it very seriously. And the more I've listened to different interviews with different people who are aligned with these various organizations, you see like there's this like deep sense of like investigation, control, and exploration that goes into the occult and all this mysticism and technology. Like when they talk, I liked how they talked about like how Hitler was fascinated with it, with the occult, and you know, even if you go into these Indiana Jones movies, it's right there in your face. It's like they were deep into this stuff. They were trying to find like the Ark of the Covenant and the Spear of Destiny and
Holy Grail.
the Holy Grail, and these things were they did not tread lightly when it came to those that subject matter.
No, they took him very seriously. I mean, in that video, it does speak about the fact that Hitler felt, or his advisors in this occult society felt, that if you could obtain the Spear of Destiny and the Holy Grail, that it would essentially give you some unbelievable power. I don't know if it was a combination of these relics or potentially the combination of other things with these relics, but you know, that was their belief. Their belief was if they obtained these relics, that they would have the unbelievable capabilities to, I don't know if it was tap into maybe an ancient type of technology, or that's where questions start to come in, though. Why would these holy relics have anything to do with technology? You know, how would they? How could they? Like, how could an ancient spear, an ancient cup of some sort, how can that give you access to acquiring technology? I mean, that's a question I had when I'm listening to this. Who convinced him of that? Who convinced him that this was the way that, you know, if you're going to build something, you essentially need a blueprint, right? Correct? You need materials. You need raw materials. You need things that are going to give you the ability to build something. I can't take that Fiji water bottle and the Lay's potato chips and go, but now I'm going to make a car. But no, it just, that's where I was lost with this.
What I got from it is it's like the metaphor of like using like a Fiji water bottle. The Fiji water bottle would be it would have symbols and coding that would allow you to extract out information. So like this really interesting guy is Douglas Dietrich, who worked for the Department of Defense, and he was a research librarian working, and he would go over all these documents, and he's got a bunch of stuff on YouTube. And true, any particular, you know, minor incident, you know, you could sit there and dispute and argue what are facts and all these other, but like his general thing, and he talks a lot about the occult and mysticism, is that like symbolism is just like you see it with marketing, like when you're constantly seeing like a Coca-Cola symbol, like it does something psychologically to your brain, and that like
the colors they pick and everything.
Yes, all of that stuff is super important, and the same applies to like the symbol of the Nazis and all these things, like occults, like how they use like all these different symbols on, like, you know, like money with the dollar bill and all there's all these things, and like there's power in it, there's energy in there. And what symbols are, symbols carry different energies. And so like from Hitler's perspective, if he were to gain access to these treasures, he would have one, like he would have the energy of these treasures in his possession as owner, and that would affect his energetic signature, his vibration, his frequency, and allow him access into these other like just realms of information. And even with one of the things they mentioned in there was like, remember they said they found a psychic, and this is another big thing. It's not like when you get into exploring like the secret government, the shadow government, whatever you want to call it, they're deeply sucked into the paranormal and like psychics and extrasensory skill sets and all that kind of stuff. But so the Germans apparently had a psychic who was able to contact some kind of otherworldly being, and then that's how they were able to get certain information that helped them from a scientific perspective, with understanding counter-rotating magnetic fields in terms of generating independent electromagnetic fields that would be separate from the Earth, and that's how you get your whole gravitation, electrogravity, all those different terms attributed to it. And that was maybe how they did it, since we had Tesla, we had Brown, we had T.T. Brown, we had like a couple things in the States here, like those guys, but those, I don't know how they were getting their information, but they were playing with the same stuff in the 20s and 30s, but maybe that's how they were doing it over there in Germany, is getting it partly through mysticism in the occult.
And the thing is, too, when people hear about these things, they kind of roll their eyes and they kind of giggle a little bit. Oh, yeah, the Nazis were researching these technologies, these extraterrestrial craft, the Bell, and our government, they would never do mind control. That's not real. Come on, they giggle a little bit, but in a way, it doesn't matter whether you believe in it and whether you believe they're doing it. If they believe in it and they're throwing billions and trillions of dollars at it, that doesn't matter what you think. If they're going to do it and they're going to find it, they're going to find it.
And that's what I like that Douglas said. He said the exact same thing. He's like, it doesn't matter that you think it's silly. They play it off.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
how it's marketed to you, is that it's a joke. Because the truth is that for the most of us, we're the little people building the pyramid. Mm-hmm. We're the pawns. And it's not like a super negative thing. It's just you don't have that kind of power. And it's just, you're disposable. And they don't want you to think it's an important thing, but they do. They take it very seriously. The higher you go, the more serious they take it.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing is as goofy as you think of a subject, as a person that this subject is, at the higher levels, if they believe in it, what you think doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If they're willing to throw trillions of dollars into researching it, what you think doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they give a lot of different angles, especially in that documentary. They talk, number one, about the fact that they supposedly found these underground caverns in Antarctica that could potentially have been possible old temples. That they do feel that, at least in this documentary, that is where Atlantis is. That's where the Germans feel that's where Atlantis was, this ancient technological civilization. So they have surmised through one part of the documentary that's where they found the ability to build these machines with these rotating discs. And then you had another part that goes into the more paranormal aspect that says that somebody contacted somebody in the star system Taurus and told them something or other. And again, if you buy into that is, completely your prerogative. So it's got so many different angles of where you want to go with it. Did they find ancient blueprints? Did they get channeled information? Did they find this on accident? Did they already have this technology, but it was slowly but surely filtered out? Because let's just be honest, hardly anything gets filtered out in a very public array nowadays. I mean, essentially everything starts at a military level and gets filtered down to the public. Computers, for example, Bay of Pigs, essentially they created computers so that they could control the missile silo systems during, the late 40s, early 50s. And then essentially over time, as the computer became more smaller, more compact, and they thought that they could make money off of it. And, obviously everything starts at a military level and is broken down. So that's why when I'm watching this and I'm listening to this and they're doing their research and they're looking for everything, I'm just wondering how the pieces are coming together, because you have to know the expedition that was shot down in the early 20th century. There was an explorer that was headed down there that said that he was attacked by flying discs, and they went down.
Bird.
They went down there with literally war type vessels. They were down there with battleships, and they were obviously heavily armed. They were prepared for if any type of resistance was met, but obviously whatever they ran into was more advanced than what they had. And at that time, I don't think anybody on a global scale was that much more advanced than the other. So now comes in the question of, as the documentary does continue, was it humans that were flying potentially advanced aviation discs that they had created, or, as the documentary does keep going along with, was it potentially a wormhole, the hollow earth theory that, Earth essentially creates a wormhole, and that there was, some type of a resistance when they saw that all of these humans were bringing all of this weaponry and hardware to this area. What was it? What was that place? I mean, very, very interesting documentary. It's unfortunate that you have to read the whole thing, because the imagery on it is also very interesting. So sometimes you miss a couple of the things on there, but it'd be nice if somebody just would kind of tone down the German in it and just, narrate it in English, if you speak English. So then therefore you could just watch the imagery on it.
The video we're talking about is called Third Reich, Operation UFO, Nazi Base in Antarctica, complete documentary. And it's uploaded by username ElfWave.
So. Yeah, the Admiral Byrd expedition to Antarctica is pretty well documented. It's hard to... I don't think it was mainstream knowledge, and that's mostly because at the time it wasn't like really well publicized, because they had already technically said the war is over. And so the war is over, but yet we think there's a group of high-level Nazis who had been for years moving equipment and setting up a base in Antarctica, and we need to go take them out. They didn't want to, I think, from a political perspective, announce or put too much like
attention.
Put so much
Yeah.
attention on that where people would know about that. But now, if you go back into these research papers and start reading about this, there's a lot of information about this. There's a lot of documents that have been declassified, and like even in that documentary, there's some where they're talking like here's like certain people's accounts, like their reports of like what happened with that engagement, and that they didn't know what they were being attacked by, and like how they lost a lot of men and they lost a couple ships, and it was almost like an embarrassment at that point. And I think that also what's funny is I think those accounts of this whole Antarctica thing is what inspired the movie Iron Sky. Because Iron Sky, even though they didn't make it Antarctica, they made it like, oh, look, Nazis have gone to the moon, and then that's where they've stayed. They've been building up a space station. So I think I haven't seen the movie yet, but I feel that movie was creatively inspired by the accounts of Admiral Byrd and the expedition into Antarctica to remove the last of the Third Reich. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me they just switched out the moon with Antarctica.
Because that was a story that was floating. Because I've read a lot about this stuff, and there's so much flack, as Drake has said it, as Michael Rupert said it, and even as Richard Dolan has talked about it. There's so much flack around the UFO issue.
Definitely.
And he made a really good point. I listened to his recent Coast to Coast thing he did.
Who?
Richard Dolan.
Oh, right.
Because he's got a new book that's just coming out called MJ-12 UFOs and Government Secrets, something of that. It's just coming out. It's a reprint of a book that came out like 20 years ago, written by this guy named, I think, Grant Cameron. But what's interesting about this book is that there's lots of high-level scientists and other political officials with on-the-record accounts of what they were involved in. And to Dolan, some of the most credible, if you were to say, well, where's the proof? Well, here's your proof. You have people who were in multi-billion-dollar projects with the government who, in their old age, are saying, this is what happened. I was involved in it. This is, there were bodies here at like Patterson Air Force Base, and these are the technologies we work with. And they're talking about all this stuff. The Canadian politicians and U.S. like businessmen, researchers, they're all talking about this stuff, and they can't produce documents. And Dolan goes into he made a really interesting point, and he said, a lot of these guys want this information to come out, but they cannot release classified material. If they produce and leak a classified document, they could go to prison for the rest of their lives. So what they have to do is sometimes they make phony documents that are bullshit documents. I mean, there's a lot of truth in it. So like they might release, like for one point he said like there was like this document dump was like 500 pages worth of documents, and he said, if you want to look at it this way, in those 500 pages of documents, you have to study it. There's a story being told here, and it might be more than what is actually like. The truth is somewhere in there, but you have to just be smart, and like a good researcher will be able to find it and get rid of the bullshit.
So like they're not actually coming right out and saying it, but they're hinting. Yes. And again, if you put the pieces together, you'll know exactly what they're talking about.
And so that's why you have all of this. There's so much stuff out there, but it's partly, he said, is because a lot of people want to get this stuff out, but they cannot release a classified document, and so they have to do it in these other various creative ways, which is even to the point of sometimes bringing in, like he talks about like Bob Lazar, like how he thinks the whole Bob Lazar thing was planned, like in a sense of they knew he was friends with what's his name? Oh crap, the CIA test pilot guy who was like his dad flew all the tests. Oh crap,
Rupert?
No, not Rupert. No. Bob Lazar and. But they knew he was friends with this other engineer who did a lot of the test flying for the CIA, and he flew all these aircraft. I forget.
I think I remember you telling me.
I know.
Talking about now.
Name's on the tip of my tongue. But they brought him out to Area 51, and he was exposed. Like he saw various discs, and they gave him like documents and other stuff that then they knew. They said that he would leak this stuff. That he would basically very quickly that. If they showed him certain things, he would talk about it, and that he would leak certain information. And they did this what they were saying, like what Dolan was saying, is this is all done by, if you want to call them white hats, good guys, but people who want this stuff to get out, but they can't violate national security. So they have to do it in like clever ways to get information out. So over time, there's enough stuff where people can start putting the story together and everybody knows what's going on. Otherwise, there's no way to bust it. There's no way to crack it. Because you would just, if everyone just adhered to those policies and then released nothing, you would know nothing about this stuff right now. It's only because of these leaks and people talking about it. And even now, like you see, like some of these guys are like these astronauts are hardcore, like Gordon Cooper and some of these guys, like they'll say certain things. They'll say what they feel they can say without violating national security. Because even though they're 80 years old, they don't know. If they were threatened with their lives, as if like Bob Dean has talked about, and some of the other astronauts have said, these guys were threatened with their lives if they talk about certain things. It might not hurt them, but it might go onto their family or something. I totally
definitely, yeah.
So
you guys saw, or I don't know if you guys saw. Did you guys see the reboot V television series?
No, I think I watched an episode.
Okay, this is essentially, I mean, we can say over and over that there's a codex and there's a header and a footer and there's a secret word in this document and that document. All you're going to do is you're going to give skeptics more of a reason to go, that's bullshit. I'm not going to spend my time to go through 500 pages to look through page 46 and page 113 and see the story being built. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's what the truth of the reality is. Yeah. Nobody wants to take that much time.
I mean, even for me, reading through Greer's Disclosure Project book, I'm not going to lie, I skimmed through some of that stuff because it's so much brutal. So much data.
Yeah. So, okay, basically what the point I'm getting to is that in the television show V, in the reboot, this first episode, these huge motherships come down and just start very Independence Day-esque, just start to land and kind of hover over major cities, and then you start to get these like huge reflective, almost like holographic panels that reflect off the bottom of the ship, and they start presenting or playing like a huge movie to the people, showing them, hey, look, we're here in peace, we're here in this. The point of that is the only way you are going to convince the masses that something like this or something along the lines of this is a very real thing. Because again, Joe Plumber, Johnny Real Estate Agent, Maria Accountant, she does not care. He does not care about all of the research that we might look into in our spare time and check out because they don't have time. The system is set up to keep them drowned in just this regurgitating debt syndrome of blah, blah, gotta pay credit cards. Exactly. So the only way anything is going to happen is there has to be some immense disclosure, like something at the Olympics so that the world would see, or something at like the Super Bowl or something along the lines of a massive amount of people would have to see it so that so that there is no naysayers going, oh, well, that was a trick of this or that or whatever, because of course the people watching the broadcast would say, oh, well, that's definitely a trick of light. The lens gave this, blah, blah, blah. But then you've got over 500,000 people at the actual site who saw it. That is a lot of people. Yeah, that's like not just two people.
That's like the Phoenix Lights incident. That whole I don't know. It was a while. It wasn't like there and gone in 15 minutes. It was like a few hours. This giant craft was floating over Phoenix, Arizona, and a lot of people saw it. And there were news reports about it going on at the time. And then when it was made a mockery of afterward by I think he was like the mayor of the town, people were really upset at that.
But you know what? I think in retrospect, I thought that was good though, because he believed, like the mayor was one of the people.
He came out and apologized later on.
But I think that approaching it with the lighthearted, I think it backfired at the time.
Yes,
but approaching it with this lighthearted humor of having a guy come out in a costume, it was saying it nothing to be afraid of, and it wasn't like, oh, this is so serious, let's all be afraid of this. I think it could have been handled better.
Yeah,
but it was one of those. It's a good example though of like what you're saying about Jason, where because it's at least like 10 or 20,000 people.
You need to expose an enormous amount of people to really get the collective to start to buy into something. I mean, you just can't. I know everything. Everything starts with a very small lull, small revolution, whatever you want to call it. Snowball collects a little bit more snow, turns into an avalanche, blah, blah, whatever. But with something like this, on the scale of if you are talking about the possibility of extraterrestrial life or just secrets and whatnot, there's so much. There's so much that people will just always look at. They'll be excited about it. They'll check it out. They'll use it as entertainment. However, they will not give it the respect that it's due, because to them it's entertainment. It's off the cuff stuff. It's Star Trek. It's Gene Roddenberry. It's oh, that's really cool. Yeah, this is awesome, but this is too outlandish. I mean, I got to go to work at 7 a.m. tomorrow.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That is essentially what you deal with I would say almost 90 to 95% of the populace, because it is, like you said, Geoff, it's distraction begets more distraction. And then, I feel that it's not necessarily a distraction mode, but I feel that it's a shackling. That's what I feel. It's a shackling process.
Another one too is the purposeful disinformation. So let's say somebody does go and follow a thread that they're interested in, and then suddenly, if there's truth to something, if there is intentional disinformation put out that's 10% off of the truth, and then another bit of disinformation that's 20% off of that truth, the whole thing gets muddied, and then suddenly that person loses their, I don't want to say hope, but they lose their steam, and then I go, oh, well, this was just bullshit. Yeah. So everything else is probably bullshit too.
It's like peeing in a pool.
Peeing in the pool.
It's basically like, here, something happened. All you got to do is pee in a pool. You pee in a pool, nobody can drink it. And then it just becomes, oh, we don't want to deal with this anymore. And you walk away. What I thought was, I'd never heard about this before in this light, but in this other Dolan thing, in the Dolan Coast to Coast thing that was just like last week, whatever, they talked about how there was a team, and this is all just more stuff that's in this book and just stuff that he was talking about at length, though, pretty much in the podcast, was that in 1970, somewhere around that time frame, there was almost, he feels, an effort for mass disclosure in a sense of bringing certain information out, right? And there was a group of people in the Pentagon who hired these filmmakers, like these film guys, to make a documentary about all of the stuff they knew at that time, up to that point. And they showed them the Holloman Air Force Base landing, which I think that took place in 69 or 70, I don't know exactly, but it was somewhere around there. That was the whole thing with where Eisenhower met with some off-world ETs, and they said the Navy had recorded it from, like, they had like the 3 different angles that the Navy had set up 3 cameras, and they had shot and filmed it all, and they had filmed them exchanging like some technology, in a sense. They were letting them see some of their craft and all of this, how this whole like basically first contact went down with like a government, like more of an official one. And they had filmed it, and they wanted to make a documentary about it. And they were showing them other, like a lot of stuff. And this went on for a few months, where this team was putting together this documentary that they were going to release. And at the very last moment, they pulled the plug and got all the material back from them and decided not to go through with it. But it's almost like there was this momentum, like as if there was some talks and they were going to finally, because I think at that stage, it would have been one of those things where initially, and I think we've all talked about this before, if this had, let's say this all was true, and in 47, a disc crashed in Roswell, and they started accruing this technology, and they were trying to figure out what's going on. You might not want to tell people right away, just even from just a pure military perspective. You wouldn't want to tell the world what you've got.
Yeah, you want to take a step back and figure things out a little bit first.
So you're like, whoa, we got to figure this out. This is crazy. And it might have been like time is going through, and you're kind of getting this going, and you get to a point where you might go, okay, let's get this out. We need to disclose this. And I could just imagine, I could see that energy being like, it's been like 10 years, 15 years. We got to start working on how we're going to tell people now and get this out. We can't cover this up forever. But then you've got those guys who are like, yes, we can. You've got those guys who go, yes, we can keep this a secret for longer. And then even if it's just, we just need 5 more years, we just need 10 more years, we're just not going to tell people, let's worry about it. We got this going on right now. We got to do this and that, and this is going on with that. Da, da, da. So I can see how this can just snowball into where you're at today. You're just like, oh my God. It's political and economic suicide for them to say anything at this point.
In so many ways.
I want to bring something up here. I'm going to play skeptic for a minute. The one thing that's always puzzled me, and this is somebody who I've been a fan of just ET lore, the mythos, the culture of whatnot my whole life. But I always wonder, like, whenever you hear about these wonderful occurrences or these fantastical, amazing, questionable occurrences. I mean, we've got, what is that, the Berkshire incident in England.
Yeah, at
Am I saying that right?
Rendlesham Forest.
Rendlesham Forest.
Next to that base, yeah.
We've got, obviously, the 47 crash in Roswell. We've got them buzzing the White House. We've got,
That's right, yeah.
you know, we've got all of these moments that have happened. I'm sure I'm missing a couple other very pinnacle moments. I mean, this is the one thing that I've always questioned. If these beings are so intelligent and they're just completely peaceful and energetic and they just want to, they're essentially just explorers for the most part, why don't they just touch down at fucking Harvard? Touch down in a college and go somewhere. Hold on a second, because here's where we run into the issue all the time with skeptics coming up and saying, well, why are they always at a base? Why are they always at these places? And then, you know, you'll get the reverse angle of, oh, because they're trying to stop nuclear weapons and they're trying to stop weaponry and they're trying to do that. Okay, well, if they were to disclose themselves to the mass public first, then you would get, like I said, the masses together. And then they can in turn say, hey, look, I don't know why you've been talking to these jerk-offs over here. You know, we put them in this position, unfortunately. But now since 10 million people know instead of 50,000 people knowing, you know, now you have power in numbers. You have strength in numbers. I mean, aside from the Phoenix Lights thing and aside from that, what was that one video we saw one time? I think it was either in Jerusalem. Yeah, that's another one. I mean, again, the Phoenix Lights and the Jerusalem incident, those are incidents where we go to a place that is non-military. We go to a place because, again, whenever you hear military and government, of course, everybody's ears perk up. Everybody's inner conspiracy theorist jumps up and goes, oh, man, you know, it's black ops. It's shadow this. It's shadow that. But in reality, when you try to pull it all together and you try to make sense of it all, I think every skeptic essentially wants to believe. They do. They want to believe in some way, shape, or form, whether they're trying to believe in, you know, superheroes, they're trying to believe in the diet that they're on, whether they're trying to believe in love or relationships or the possibility of extraterrestrial life. They want to believe somewhere, but unfortunately, they just need some hardcore proof. So whenever you always have these old pictures of old white guys in uniforms, tan khakis, you know, it's just, oh, really? You know, another shot of this guy holding up tinfoil and another shot of this guy pointing off in the horizon. There's a blur,
exactly. An old dot in the photo.
So I cannot blame a lot of people for having such a negative outlook when you even just try to have them just open up a little bit for some acceptance. So that's why I've always questioned, why don't they just touch down in Chicago? There's a couple people living there, last time I heard. You know, touch down right by the Sears Tower.
Right in Grant Park. Boom.
You know,
Millennium Park, right in the middle of a concert.
And it just, again, I'm asking you guys. I'm asking you I'm playing devil's advocate here / skeptic. So I'm asking, what do you think, Matt? What do you think? Why not? Why haven't they done that or something like that?
I want to hear what Geoff has to say.
I've thought about
Geoff,
He's chomping at the bit.
Now, this requires you to go much further down the rabbit hole. That's the simplest way to put it. You have to go
there.
You have to go much further because it encompasses. When you start getting into conspiracy theory, it's conspiracy within conspiracies. It's like it's one of those. What do you call those? It's the Russian dolls. It is. It's one of those little dolls. Okay. Yeah. And it gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And for instance, these are my theories, but they're also theories. These are other people's theories that I've just amassed and I've thrown together into, let's say, just my theory, right? The reason they cannot just land somewhere is because we have extremely hostile governments that are you have the illusion that you have a democratic government. When in my reality, these people are highly paid actors who are pretending, they're masquerading as a democratic government. And this is worldwide. When at the very top of that, you have a very small group of people, let's say it's like 5,000, 10,000 people, that is a business network of very powerful, wealthy individuals, families, secret societies. They control all of this stuff, and they run these governments worldwide. You have
They've bought and paid for everybody, essentially, and blackmailed.
It really is. It's a mob. Even though it looks nice, and for the most, you think, oh no, we elect our. No, to me, it's just a mob.
It's definitely a mob. They're definitely willing to kill for anything.
Yes,
if anybody knows anything, they don't just like the mob. They don't take any chances with anything. They just.
Yeah, and this goes into like people thinking, oh, Barack Obama. Everyone blames Obama, and then they blame Clinton. This is like blaming the lunch lady for what's wrong with like things at your high school. But to me, it's
I like that analogy.
The error in the perception is thinking that the lunch lady is running the school. But you only interface. So the people come into the lunchroom and they interface with the lunch lady the president, and they think this is what's going on, and they're voting for things, and they think that they have a say in it. But meanwhile, there's like a few more floors on this building, and you don't even know they exist.
I wonder if the lunch lady gets the same pension as the CEO of the United States.
So that's one aspect. Is really, if they were to even violate our airspace, they're going to have F-16s, F-18s, or Black Ops trying. They're going to have hidden. They're going to have all this technology aimed at them, like, oh look, they're invading, and now it serves as a further impetus to say, look, aliens are hostile. We've known about this, and because you already have all this propaganda with alien invasion movies and all this shit, so they can't even come here. They can't. Yeah. They would just be killed or shot down by some fucking radar thing. and now the other big thing.
So you're saying that if they do land at Harvard and they interact with people, suddenly then they're going to scramble. The shadow government's going to scramble their own ET craft and start shooting stuff and say, "Oh, look, see, they're here to shoot us."
It would be very bad.
They're not hot. They're not nice.
Or or that would just be locked down so quickly, and then whatever visitor landed would be treated as hostile. They might be killed. They're subjected to. Now they're going to spend the rest of their lives living in a box, and while little scientists try to get them to answer more questions about. Timelines or time space and other technology. So it's not a friendly environment for them. So you need to have peace on the planet before they're going to come down. First off, you need peace on Earth, no wars, and you also need to not have the mob, or basically masquerading as your democratic governments around the world. You need true representation of the people, and you need peaceful representation, like no threats of nuclear war and all this crap, which is like, even if you just discount, just get rid of all the UFO lore and all this other crap, and it's just, what are wars are just, they're economic drivers. That's it. Mm-hmm. They're driven by economics. Oh, we want this oil. We want this. That's all it is. It's resources. You're just going after and part of the whole distraction process on a much larger scale. But so you need to have peace. But the other big issue is, why don't they just land? Is because that is a massive violation of cultural interference. You're not allowed to do that.
This sounds like Star Trek to me.
No, it totally is.
The Prime Directive.
It's totally Prime Directive.
Where did he get that from?
Where do you think he got it from?
Well, Gene Roddenberry, yeah. Gene Roddenberry.
Did he get it channeled to him?
Apparently, I don't know.
Apparently he did.
Apparently they did.
Okay.
Apparently there was something with that, where a lot of information came through. They were connected into just like, I don't want to say mediums, but just networks of people who were much more spiritually aware, let's just say. But the Prime Directive is a very real thing, and you do not. And even if we just want to anthropomorphize the situation now, and we're humans, right? We come across. We see, let's just imagine we see an island, and there's some people who had never seen outside of their island. Like, they've gone generations and generations just living on this island, right? And it's a little community of 10,000 people. And you could say, oh, let's go over there. Let's drop down there and just let's take our cigar boat over there and bring some iPads and some headphones and Daft Punk albums and just get them all acclimated. Well, no, I mean, who are you to infringe on their culture like that? Now, you could possibly say, let's introduce, if you see problems, they have medical problems, maybe then you go, how can we get over there without freaking them out too much with our technology and maybe help them? Like, they're suffering a disease that maybe we can help. So maybe we send 1 or 2 people over there to try to befriend them and talk to them and find someone they can trust to teach them about medicine or teach them about, something that might help
just to
improve.
give them a nudge in the right direction. Just give them one piece of technology that if they're smart, it'll lead them down a path of figuring out a whole bunch of other stuff.
But you're not going to, it's wrong, and I don't want to say it's wrong. It's not like a right and wrong thing, but to land on some other person's planet and then start spreading out your culture and telling them, well, this is how things work, and that's like assimilation.
Okay, well, quick question then. Do you guys buy into the ancient alien theory? Yes?
Yes.
Parts of it, yeah.
Okay, so then why did these ancient aliens do exactly what you're saying is a big no-no then?
Well, there was a lot of things that had happened prior. Like, this goes into, though, that, like, we're not just from Earth. Like, most people who are on this planet are from a mixture of humanoid planets or like cultures.
Why we have so many different appearances?
Partly, yeah. And,
Okay.
and you know, they came here, let's say it was 100,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago, and they're in various civilizations. And you're allowed to, when the cultures desire it. So like, let's say you had peace on Earth, and then all of this knowledge of, hey, there were recovered UFOs, there were recovered discs, and all this other kind of stuff. And imagine everyone in America suddenly going, well, hey, like, what's up with that? We now we know about this, and what were they like, and we want to meet these people. And then now you open yourself for contact. But it has to be the will of the people, like in a sense of the majority of the people saying, this is what we want. If the majority of the people are stuck in a distraction mode, like we've talked, which is like that sense of just like the worker bee mentality, that also can't, that it's harder for that to manifest, for people to do that. So, but I do think, like, if you, this is from, I've read so much on Dolores Cannon's work. She has all of this like past life regression where they go into this stuff, and a lot of these times, like with the whole ancient alien thing, ancient astronaut theory, is that they were coming here to help nudge society. So it was teaching them certain farming methods, teaching them certain sciences and math. And that's like when you get into some of these tribes, and it's like, oh, how did these tribes in Mexico know more about different star systems? And they have all the, like, they knew this was a binary star system. They knew all this stuff.
Well, what does she say about like the Mahabharata and like Sodom and Gomorrah? Because that definitely wasn't teaching me how to grow corn. That was a nuclear weapon, supposedly, and that was like, battles going on. So again, like,
that was bunked, and Ancient Aliens debunked.
That's right, dude. Look that up. But again, like, so for as much information that we throw out, we're always going to get that wave crashing against the wall of. By the way, I'm on board with my buddy Geoff here on a lot of what he says. Yeah. But again, I'm just playing the skeptic here, the devil's advocate of it. Again, that's what a lot of people will say. They'll say, well, I heard Sodom and Gomorrah was a nuclear blast. Well, if these beings are so, peaceful, why did this happen? Why, you know what I mean? Like, those are the walls we run into so many times when you're trying to just get people to listen and whatnot. Mm-hmm. You hear about
most people aren't willing to have a discussion about it.
Yeah, if you can get that far.
Yeah, if you can get that far.
But I mean, the Mahabharata, I mean, you're talking about airships having aerial battles, and you're talking about Alexander while he was conquering parts of Asia and eastern India. I mean, he's talking about these silver-winged bronze shields attacking one another. Mm-hmm. So again, like, you just wonder. I mean, you question, is every single potential race, were they all as peaceful as they say that they were? I mean, so again, playing that roll up, you're always going to find those crash moments, and then if you buy into the hypno-regression, if you buy into reincarnation, if you buy into the astral, the projection, the metaphysical of things, you can search for more answers. You can search for more pieces to your research that you want to, or you can go in completely different directions. But it's difficult because then you have these counter arguments all the time, especially from a skeptic side, especially.
And that's why I try to go with this macro approach all the time. Like, I try to say any one particular detail that somebody says is subject to massive interpretation. And it's very subjective based on their own experiences. And you could say, well, what if they're lying about that? Yeah, what if they are? What if they've been lied to? What if somebody just slipping in some mistruth there, right? So anything minor is hard. So like disputing about Sodom and Gomorrah and, oh, was that a nuclear blast? Or maybe it was this, maybe it was this. And I'd rather say, that's difficult. I don't know, and it's very difficult. It's hard to say it's this and it's not that. But it's easier to say there was some kind of explosion there, and there was this is. So you almost have to look at it through like a foggy lens, and like you can't see the details, but like there was there was something bad that happened there,
right?
And you almost allow all of the different accounts and what people are talking about just to kind of flood into you and just average out, and you just feel them out and just search for recurring themes and notions and what people talk about, and then apply that to even bigger perspectives and more macro perspectives and see how that fits, and constantly just averaging, constantly just letting it settle and see where it goes with the big picture.
Definitely. I mean, and again, another argument that will be thrown at you is the fact that your passion and your belief is so strong in not only the research that you've done, but the minute you say those 3 little words, I don't know, when all of everything building up to that point of you were like, oh, well, I listened to this and I read this and I watched this and I did that. The minute somebody throws something at you that you respond with, I don't know about, again, boom, you're grabbing at straws. You know, you're living you're living in this fantasy land. You know, oh, really? That okay, buddy, sure.
At that moment, the conversation ends.
That's
and they kind of just lean back in their chair and they cross their arms and they go.
And you see that even with modern science, where I mean, with Sodom and Gomorrah, you know, we're talking like what, like I don't know, like thousands of years ago. But even just thinking in more modern times, with scientists disputing all of these things. Well, I did this study and it showed this. Why did this study and it showed this? And I did this. It's hard to say anything is absolute. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could sit here and say I absolutely know that if I pick up Jason's iPad and chuck it at your wall, it's going to bust in pieces. Now, consider this: my absolute faith in that is only modeled on these ideas that any time I've ever in the past thrown something at a wall, it didn't go through it. What if I threw that iPad at that wall and it went right through it right now? It would just be shocking if it goes right through the wall. But now it completely destroys all evidence to the prior fact that we couldn't do that. Mm-hmm. But so we're operating under these assumptions of only what our perceptions allow us to. And maybe that's a bad example. Maybe not. I don't. But. No, but you're constricted to that. Like you think what is possible.
It's just like if you believe in ghosts, you know. Again, it's just
proof,
like anything. If you've had a ghost experience, then you'll believe.
Yes.
Right. I mean, it's proof. You know, human beings, unfortunately, we're very proof based. You know, we want to see the proof in the pudding. You know, Geoff, you direct. Well, can I see a film you directed? You got to imagine it. Okay, so you're not a director then. You're just telling me you're a director, but you're not really a director. Matt, you do sound. Can I hear something?
I'm working on some stuff.
Exactly. Oh, Jason, you act? Oh, can I see some of your work? Exactly. The proof is in the pudding for a lot of people, and unfortunately, we are such a cut, hard laden. Is it in, for the lack of a better term, is it in stone? You know, we want to see something, we want to feel it, you know? So that's why I think it's tough whenever, like, Geoff is a very, very spiritual person. When he talks about these experiences, you know, some people can relate 100%. Some people may say, oh, you know, I kind of sort of get it. And some folks just turn their nose up at it. So, you know, it's how you relate to your material. It's what your belief is, you know, where your strengths lie with that. Because those bases for comparison are always going to affect how you perceive things. Mm-hmm. You know, you may not be a very religious or spiritual person, and then you have children, and then maybe you become very religious and spiritual. Maybe you have an incident and you become very religious or spiritual. I don't know. It's probably different for everybody.
And the thing is, like you love to bring up, which is awesome point, is what is proof? What would you need for it to be proof? And somebody asked this on Reddit recently. Could Anonymous prove whether or not UFOs and aliens are real? Yeah, and they were asking something about proof, and what I posted was, what kind of proof would you need to really prove the existence of extraterrestrials? What would definitely do it for you, aside from ETs actually coming down and actually meeting you in person? And of course, I got downvoted to the bottom.
Yeah, because it's one of those you have to think about it. And actually, I like the iPad thing of throwing it through the wall, because it's one of those things you only believe it's possible based on like prior experiences with like trying to do something. So it's like your sense of like, think about babies, like they're putting everything in their mouths, they're touching everything, they're crazy, right? But they're what those a baby is doing. These crazy babies.
You're creating a library. Crazy. You're creating a library of experiences.
You are learning the rules of the reality you've been dropped into. Mm-hmm. What is the video game? What are the buttons here? What does this do? Can I go through this wall? Can I go to this? Oh, I can't go through this wall. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can do this. So it's all that figuring out and creating a standard, like a set of rules that apply to the reality you're in.
You actually kind of do whenever you play a game for the first time, a video game. Like, oh, there's a car. I wonder if I can get in the car. Oh, I'm in the car now. I wonder if I could, swing my arm out and hang out and shoot stuff while I'm driving the car. Oh, wait, no, the game doesn't let me do that. Okay, just driving. Okay.
Yeah, you test your boundaries.
You test
all your boundaries. Yeah,
but if you see something, just like in a video game, if suddenly you see a character doing something that you couldn't do before, you're like, whoa, what's that? How do I do that? How do I do that? And I think this also just goes into my spiritual nature. Like the metaphysical stuff of if, like spoon bending. Like most people are like, oh, it's not even real. But then you get into...
I saw Neo do it.
You did? But, I've seen videos of people doing this, and I've also read accounts of people in classes. And what's interesting is belief is so important to being able to do any of this stuff, because if you don't believe in it, you're not going to be able to do it. And when they've had groups of like 20 or 30 people, they'll have somebody, leading the exercise through spoon bending and how they do it. And after 1 or 2 or 3 people get it, it's almost like the 100th monkey. Everyone else sees that the other people are doing it. They're like, holy shit, this works. And then, lo and behold, like 30 people will do it within minutes. Within minutes of the first 1 or 2 people. As soon as you just need that first little crack to appear where these people figure out how to do it, and they're able to do it, they believe it enough, they do it, and then everyone else starts to believe that they can do it.
It transmits through the source field and it connects everybody, and they all know at the same time.
Going through the source field.
Speaking of that, okay, so one thing we were really hot to talk about on this podcast today is David Wilcock just posted something about, where do I start with this? Stephen Greer is doing a new documentary, a movie called Sirius, with director Amardeep Kaleka. And one of the features of the movie is this supposedly recovered little like 4-inch tall extraterrestrial corpse. And they show lots of pictures and video of it, and they have like, CT scans of it and X-ray and all this stuff. And the post that Wilcock made this morning was that they found another one, or they had found another one in 1996 in Russia. And so we were just talking about this morning.
Yeah, this was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I mean, it made me think of it totally made me think of how in Hollywood you start to see, almost like in Hollywood you see things manifest that are starting in these like secret little, in this almost like hidden world. And this little alien is, how tall is it, Matt? It's like,
I think it's 4 inches or something like that.
I think it's a little bit bigger than that. I think it's like maybe the tallest one, the one that they had was maybe close to 1.5 feet. They're pretty small.
They're mature.
It looks like 4 inch. Like it looks like, because it's shown next to his hand right there. You can see it's pretty small.
That is pretty.
But they
small.
said the skeletal structure and everything with like it's mature. Like
tiny.
the bone density of like this.
Yeah,
the organism.
They could tell it wasn't. Apparently, they could tell it wasn't a fetus.
Yeah, like it's not like an aborted fetus or whatever, like a small baby or something. It doesn't look anything like that anyway.
No, it doesn't.
But it made me think of Men in Black with those the little aliens that they have hanging around Will Smith, and these little like, and they don't look exactly the same, but they look similar enough where I would think that got out. This is one of the races, and then people, that's something you would whisper about if it was, getting just whispered about, like, hey, this is what's going on, like the little insiders and trading information. I could see how that would make it to Hollywood,
make it to the screenwriters who wrote the movie, and they would write that in, or even the character that sat in the human's head, in the first movie, and suddenly the head opens up, and there's this little guy controlling all the levers of the human being body.
Yeah, that's cool. It makes me think of all of the legends around the world about fairies. That's what it really makes me think of. Because, even prior to the motion picture, we had books and we had legend and we had the spoken word, obviously, and, story bouncing from person to person. But in a lot of cultures, especially European, Western European, and in those areas, you had these cultures who believed in little people, whether they be magical leprechauns, magical fairies, things, these little people. And now this individual being that we're talking about here, the one that Stephen Greer showed at his presentation in Santa Monica, it looks pretty legit. It's an EBE, extraterrestrial biological entity. As far as the testing, we are actually waiting to hear something back as far as...
I'm sure they're going to wait until the movie to reveal some of that. I would think. But then...
you don't want to get those ticket sales down.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's be honest, there's still a buck to be made. But, it looks... Again, I'm going back to the proof thing and, the question of proof, what is proof, et cetera. The one point that Matt brought up earlier was that I think there was a thread on Reddit that had said, hey, what are the results on this thing? Has there been an MRI
I was just about
done?
to read that quote. So... somebody wrote here, this makes me skeptic about this new finding, because the cost of doing proper MRI testing, full and dispositive forensic level DNA testing, and carbon dating with other isotope testing are considerable and certainly not currently funded. So they're saying it's really expensive to go and do all this testing. And this person writes, none of these tests are especially expensive. In fact, most are pretty routine at every university.
So can you just go to a university and get these things done?
Yeah, I'm curious because as far as I know, to go get an X-ray or to go get a CT scan for me at a hospital, they're going to charge me $10,000. Not to me, they're going to charge it to my insurance.
Yeah, maybe not at a university. If you have the right, well, everything's free if you have the right hookups. I mean, think about like we're in a production environment, so most people go, man, all this stuff's real expensive. And yeah, if somebody wanted to hire me and a bunch of guys to go do something, it's going to cost some money.
Yeah.
But if a friend or somebody that, even if they're not a friend, they're doing something that I think is cool and that I just want to be a part of. I'm not, if they say, hey, I've got no money, but I got this cool thing I want to do, cool, let me go see it. If I was a guy who had CT equipment and normally I charge people a lot of money for stuff, some guy's like, dude, I think I got an alien body. I'd be like, okay, bring it in. Bring that body in here. You know, I'm not going to charge this guy anything. I might pay, you know, for him to come bring it in here because I'd want to see it. You know,
can I fly you out? Where you at, dude?
You know, if Greer hit me up and he was saying, hey, do you want to? How much would it cost for you guys to come film this alien body? I'm going to be like, nothing. You know, what do you need? What kind of equipment? I'll pull as many favors as I have to so I can see this thing.
Yeah, very cool stuff, though. Cool development. I mean, it was definitely during his presentation, it was one of the most, for me, it was a highlight. I really enjoyed that part of it. My ears really perked up, you know, whenever I see, you know, for my version of proof, I was very, very interested because, you know, I've seen like those washed up on shore, New Jersey, what is that, Montauk monster
those crazy,
things.
Montauk monster.
And, you know, obviously the chupacabra stuff you see in Central America and South America, and a lot of people have debunked those as, you know, just VFX, you know, oh, that's just special effects stuff that people have done with this, that, and the other. But, you know, this, again, it just...
curious to see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Did you mention, and there was another one now. The other one was found it's like almost like an identical like size type body found in Russia, but that one was living for 3 weeks with a woman.
According to this article, it lived and talked to this woman, this older woman up in like the mountains of Russia for like 3 weeks before it ended up dying because it couldn't survive our environment.
Huh.
That's what
and you see that a lot too, even with the Roswell, like certain theories, whatever, not series, but certain information that has come out of the whole Roswell thing was that one of the EBEs, one of the aliens lived for like a certain amount of time, but the environment was just really hostile for it. Like it couldn't tolerate our environment, and it seemed to know that it was going to die soon. So
I'm curious to see what you guys think about this quote about somebody saying that, oh, these tests are actually pretty routine and pretty, I don't want to say cheap, but they're cheaper. What do you guys think about that? Because I feel like, again, I could see me being in a university and someone saying, I got a little alien I want to bring in and get, you know, get a scan done, and just kind of chuckling like, okay, all right, give me $10,000, and then I'll let you come in and do the thing. I could see that happening. Or the exact opposite, which is saying, oh, if they really have an alien body, people are going to drop all their shit and they're going to come and want to check it out. No, most people aren't going to want to do that.
Because what are you paying for? When you say something is expensive, you're paying for the privilege to do something. Like it's not like even you go to a hospital, right? It's you go there for a day or two, and you're like, oh my god, I got this $8,000 bill. Do you think $8,000 worth of labor was applied to your stay there? No. Nothing like that.
It's all that jello.
It's just all markup.
Yeah,
after a certain point, it's markup.
You're paying for the access to this $500,000 device, and this is how much we charge. The same way, if like I go buy a $30,000 camera, and then if I'm hired to go shoot something, I might charge this is going to be a $700, $800 fee for me to come out with this camera. So you're paying for something. It doesn't have real. I don't want to say real value, but it's that sense that you're paying for something that is really just technology, and you're paying for the access to that technology, right? So I don't want to say that they didn't have to pay anything, because even for the Sirius documentary, for Greer's film, they had to raise money. They raised like, what is it, $250,000?
Kickstarter, it was a $250,000.
They raised like $250,000 to go make, because you need to pay for people's labor, for their time. So if you're going to have a film crew and editors and motion graphics and all these like people coming out for like 6 months following you around, you got to pay for that. But to bring an entity into a lab and have some tests running on it for a day or two, if you wanted to, you could just simply charge them labor for the day of, okay, like maybe they couldn't be doing other things. That's it. So it shouldn't cost that much.
Yeah. Another thing is I could see, you know, again, if like you had all these, you know, respected scientists in a room and they all hear this, oh yeah, there's a being, you know, we want to come and scan it and do tests on it in your lab. They all kind of look at each other and go, "Do you believe this? Do you believe this?"
Yeah,
well, I don't know.
Well, it's suicide. For them.
They don't necessarily want to buy in and just say, "Oh yeah, come and do it for free," you know, because they're going to look at their buddies and go, you know, should we believe in this? Should we give them the free time? I don't know, and I could see that becoming an issue.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of a better way of putting what I was just thinking.
That goes into the whole if you want to really suppress a topic, what you can do is ridicule it and make people pay for it by, you know, damaging their careers. Like the guy I was talking about earlier, Bob Lazar's friend, is John Lear, and what John Lear did prior to a lot of this stuff coming out is he was like a commercial airline pilot, I think, at one point. That was like one of his jobs that he was doing beyond being like, I think he did like test pilot stuff too, but he was a commercial airline pilot. That was his main bread and butter. And when certain documents came out in the alternative news that he believed in UFOs, his simple belief, I believe in UFOs, that to the company, to the corporation, which is superseding, you know, it's the whole corporate structure going up and up and up. They were like, oh, well, we can't have somebody who believes in UFOs flying one of our aircraft. So you get punished. So you have this ridicule thing. So even if and that's the other thing with Greer that I feel you're up against with even having this, we have an alien body, there's so much ridicule and career damaging just effects that have been seeded out over the last few decades that for any respectable, and so what does that mean? The same as how you could dispute, well, what is truth? What's respectable? What is, you're a respectable scientist? What does that mean? And so, but bringing somebody in is really, you could say respectable is somebody who's popular, who is like
popular.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, like somebody who's popular and everybody knows who he is. So getting somebody like that, when you say, oh, do you want to come do this? Would you come analyze this? Because it would be really helpful to have your name associated with this. To somebody like deGrasse Tyson, it's, whoa, that could, or you're messing with his bread and butter.
It could even be a security issue. It could be an issue of, we want to go talk to scientists that we're comfortable with, we know we can trust, because, you know, we don't want to go to a lab and have it someone come in and steal this thing, or suddenly have it blow up because the shadow government knows that it's in this room at this particular time. They want to go to somebody they can trust.
Yes.
So they're not going to, you know, whatever top scientist. I don't know.
And to me, respectable is interchangeable with just famous. In a sense of like how we look at it in our modern times. So saying, it doesn't mean that, because I think deGrasse Tyson is brilliant, and I love and I enjoy listening to him, and I think he has wonderful insights and ideas, and he's attracting kids to science in a way that is without him would be more difficult to do. So I think he's doing great things, but at the same time, he's still a celebrity in that culture of he's popular, and there's like protection built in around it, where he's got to protect in his own interest, and you can't go and talk about subjects that are going to maybe cast you into the realm of, oh, he's one of those crazy dudes, and now he suddenly loses all of that. All of his funding, all the clout and the funding that he's built up, the credibility, right? The respectability. Respectability is almost, you have to fit right into the bell curve. You can't be too extreme, or you lose your respectability.
I have another quote from the thread if you want me to read it. It's
Bring it. Oh,
about the alien bodies. But
real quick, I just wanted to respond to what you asked earlier about how would I take it if somebody said, "Hey, I've got this alien body and I want to bring it in." I'd be like, "Dude, let's go do it."
That's what people are saying.
Here's the key. Let's go make it happen. Because I would want to be one of those people that said, I was there, I saw it, I actually checked this out. I wouldn't be one of those people who go, you probably just got a dead squirrel. You know, I don't want to see that thing.
Can you imagine if it was a dead squirrel?
Oh my
God! All this
fluffy tail.
You go through all this, like all these hoops, and then the guy brings in like a dead squirrel, and he's like.
You just look at it for it's clearly a dead squirrel too. Oh yeah, that definitely
like, what the hell are you doing? Get out of here with that.
He's like, I was pretty sure this one was it.
Yeah, but I'd be on board. Sorry,
it's like I ran over it with my car and I just thought it was an alien.
It sure was moving fast.
This stuff can so easily be fake. If this was real in any way, it would be headline news all over the world. I mean, seriously, physical evidence, full corpses no less, of alien life forms visiting Earth. And all it gets is a minor exposure on some crackpot website. Come on, let's get both corpses to the most known scientists on the planet and see what they say. I'm certain if these are for real, that they would do the easy work of figuring it out if they are alien or not for free. Of course, this will never happen because these are probably something that is some very creative person made.
No. What this person is saying is, I'm not angry at this person, because what they're reacting they're reacting in a manner that is appropriate to their knowledge and perspective of what they believe is going on. Now, granted, I have different beliefs, so to them I would counter with, you want to take it to the most popular hands because you believe that if it was just dropped off with the scientists of the top U.S. scientists and respectable people, that they would do their due diligence and it wouldn't be covered up. That's what he believes. Like, it would just totally be exposed. Yep. And then the media would have to report on it. So if you don't believe that the media is controlled by corporations who don't give a shit about that, and that these scientists are not in the pockets of these really well entrenched postage stamps that they have to stand on in their respective disciplines, then that becomes really logical. You'd be, yeah, totally. Just what are they doing? This is total crackpot shit. But it requires you to expand outside of the realm of just typical UFO folklore or alien folklore, where you're just studying it from a material perspective. And which is why I always, whenever I comment about this stuff, I'm like, if you really want to understand UFOs, go read about the occult, go read about mysticism, go read about
I got a better book to read.
Socioeconomics.
Go read the Bible, because you have to believe in a lot of stuff that you don't see with that.
You do, though. You have to study theology. You have to study spirituality. You have to study metaphysics. You have to study sacred geometry. All of these things start to make sense in study history, and all. You have to study all of everything, and then you can start to see, I feel, what is like more of the truth. Like, there's a steep learning curve. There's an extremely steep learning curve to understanding UFOs. And if you're stuck at just the material level, then all of these things seem ridiculous. Well, why wouldn't they just land on a White House lawn? Why don't they just land at Harvard? If that body was real, you just drop it off at the...
And it would be all over the news everywhere.
It would be all over the news everywhere. No, but it requires a different level of understanding of even just simply politics, getting into understanding secret societies and how they all interconnect, and the illusion of democratic governments. Like, all of these things start to be, they're all like these different, the foundation is built on like 20 or 30 different blocks, and if you just study like one or two of them, then nothing else makes sense. You're trying to understand what a puzzle looks like, and you put 3 pieces out of 100 down on the table, and you're like, well, what is this a picture of? None of this makes sense. Well, clearly you need more pieces.
That's a good analogy. That's a really good analogy.
Why wouldn't you think the media would pick this up? I mean, again, if it's legit, what do you two think? Why wouldn't they go crazy about it?
I just want to piggyback on something Geoff just said there real quick.
Yeah, keep going.
And then I'm going to jump on this. Geoff makes a great point on everything that he was talking about there, that and I like how he started that off with, he's not mad at this guy, because again, a lot of people might look at that and go, who is this idiot? Oh, this guy doesn't believe. No, man, everybody has a right to believe whatever they want. And like that comment that I just made about the Bible, I'm not making fun of people who believe in the Bible, but essentially the stories that are told through that book are just kind of like guidelines that you should live your life by, and you can take that as fact, and you can take that as however you'd like, and that is completely up to you. But again, your belief is what it all really boils down to. If you believe that these things happened, then that's completely up to you. That's why that's the argument that I kind of push towards people whenever the discussion comes up of, well, you'll believe all of these other things that you haven't seen because it's widely accepted. But if something is potentially off the beaten path, then you just can't even, I don't know, entertain the thought.
Yeah, that's important to be able to entertain the thought.
And again, going back to what I said earlier about, using the analogy with, the TV show V and whatnot, that would be the only way, aside from what this guy said about how it being on Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, every big radio, USA Today, every LA Times, New York Times, that would be the only way that you would ever be able to get around all of the shadow governments, all of the this, all of the that, all of this, if they just dropped down and said, boom, we're here, what's up, we're hanging out, how you guys doing? Because again, there are that guy right there that just said that, he's the masses. He is the
Definitely.
masses, and he is the 90 to 95% of people that just go, this stuff's fun to talk about and it's goofy and stupid, but come on, man. You know, here's what I think. If it's so groundbreaking and earth-shattering, then it would be, you know, this physicist who won the Nobel Peace Prize and this guy that's working on the Human Genome Project could be working on it. But come on, dude, it's just some stupid little thread. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And that person controls 90 to 95% of everything. You know, and your question was, Matt?
It was about the media. It was just like, why isn't this story all over the media? If this is real, this is the real deal.
I think because, again, you know, it doesn't have the same impact that a gunshot in your neighborhood has, because it affects you right here and now. A lot of people are affected by the here and now. You know, what affects your here and now? I mean, I can tell you that in 20 years you're going to get colon cancer, but you know what, dude? If you know that, it's going to affect you here and now because it's an extreme case. But if you don't know that, you're just going to keep living your life accordingly. So the here and now affects everybody in different ways. Your here and now is in your community, in your city, you've got crime, you've got this, you've got jobs are dropping out left and right. You've got all of these things that affect you here and now, because the only 5 to 7 minutes that you can pull from that 30-minute broadcast is that America's in the shits. I can't find a job. My kids are going to be stupid, and we're gonna start. You know,
Your kids are stupid.
Yeah, you know, all these things. You know, if that's all you're pulling from that, where in there are you going to be able to find the other 3 minutes to go, wow, that's pretty crazy. They might potentially have found a little being. You know,
Go from looking at your cable bill to, oh, we found an alien body.
yeah, no, I'm serious, man.
But hold on, there was that whole thing in Colorado, like I think it was like a month or two ago, where some guy set up a camera and fast forwarded the footage, like played it really fast, and you were able to see this little craft getting up and flying around, and you couldn't figure out what it was, and it made a big deal. People were calling in from all over the world about it.
I'll tell you why.
Why?
Because I believe it clearly. I think they're bugs, and that's why. That's why because it's ridiculous. If it's ridiculous,
Geoff
the
has
media
seen the bugs himself.
because you'll play it out like it's like here's a guy who's, in my opinion, catching flies or little mites or whatever insects flying past the camera, and he's going, look, these are UFOs, and so it becomes you're like, here's this crackpot guy who appears to be like a crackpot guy doing this ridiculous thing. Get it out there, spread this out, because that becomes.
So you think the news station actually like oh, we got a story of this. This looks interesting. Let me call up my top guy in the Fox News and say, can I go investigate this?
From the top down, yes. It gets, if a story is going to spread, it has to be, you know, and any story that starts to spread is typically controlled from the higher up in the chain.
Yeah.
So up in the chain,
they have to get approved before they can rent take a truck and a camera and go out there.
If they see something that's ridiculous, but it's a UFO story, they might check. But now, if it's more legit, it's probably less likely to spread because of all of these other things we've talked about, which is they don't want you to talk. They don't want people generally talking about this in a positive manner. If they're making fun of it, though, awesome, because that helps to perpetuate a culture of mockery and a culture of just like non-acceptance. So that's why I feel that story spread, is because it didn't have a lot of weight to it.
They could see that it doesn't have a lot of weight to it, and thus could end up being mocked at some point. It serves
that agenda.
Like, oh yeah, let's let that crew go out and shoot that story.
And I don't mean that in like a mega, like there's a bunch of guys smoking cigars talking about this story in some underground bunker. No, but at just like an energetic level of how we've been conditioned, to tolerate it, to a lot of maybe like at these upper tiers of like news, how they share their information. It becomes, this is a silly story, it's funny, and it somehow just gets enough traction on the internet that it just becomes a thing. So but that's a good point too with the internet. So if Greer's stuff, when Sirius comes out, if there's enough traction on the internet, it might make it. If suddenly it's popping up in some of these, mid-range rags across the internet with various stuff like HuffPost or whatever,
local news stations who are interested in it,
it might get picked up enough where it gets enough momentum, enough of a snowball effect where it seeps into your nightly news, and like a newscaster starting off with tiny alien bodies. One guy thinks so, and it would be just even if they're mocking it, but it might make it to that realm, and I could, but I can totally just see how there'd be such big smiles on their face as they talk about it, and rightfully so, because if they're not in that place where they think it's true, they're not going to sit there and say it with a serious face.
I'm going to use an entertainment analogy here. Why are there so many cop and doctor shows out there? You know why? Because they're safe. They know that there's an audience built in for that. Every season we got a new cop show, we got a new doctor show, we got a lawyer show, because they're safe. Because the masses, the collective, essentially has been bombarded with that for so long that they're like, oh yeah, I really like that show about the doctors and stuff. You know, and sure, you can you can twist it a little bit. It can be doctors that are sexy, and then doctors that are goofy,
and doctors that are working for the mob.
Exactly. But essentially, that common thread keeps grinding. You know, everybody accepts that. If you try to throw a new type of show in there, sometimes it's a little tough for everybody else to catch on to it. People laugh at, oh, it's stupid, that's dumb, that's ridiculous. You know, I think that's how news crews will typically look at certain stories. And going back to what you guys said too, of course somebody's got to sign off on it. Somebody's got to go rent the equipment in the truck. I mean, I don't know if it's like a fire brigade, like literally they go, oh shit, a saucer, and they just literally slide down a pole, grab a camera, and fly out in a van. I don't know if it works that way, but I know that everybody probably has that little wry smile on when they go, "Oh, really, man? A UFO story?" Because
you don't think that would get ratings for the show?
I think it would.
People would drop their shit and
me personally,
making dinner, and all of a sudden they hear that on the TV. And
me personally, yes. I would stop. I would stop and drop things. Other people would scoff, turn the channel, go, "Oh, this is garbage. This is a hoax. This is a special effects little miniature that somebody bought online, and now they're trying to pass it off as a being." But I'm just saying again, the news plays with safe topics. The economy's in the shit. You're not making enough money.
You do
you
kind
suck.
of a point there, yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you branch off in a new direction and go, hey, guess what? The local school, there was a great art show the other day, and we had a great turnout. You know, I mean, those type of topics are very far and few in between, because why talk about some positive stuff when you can talk about the house that burned down, or you can talk about the three little people that unfortunately were in a terrible accident, and so those type of things get ratings. It's like reality TV with all this
really
garbage. It's dirty laundry being aired out because you don't want to concentrate and focus on yourself. You just want to be mind numbed for an hour and go, look at that. You know, I mean, I do like some of those shows, like the cooking shows, and the ones that actually talk about like older things and informative, but I can't relate to somebody who drives a Bentley and pukes every morning because they partied so hard last night. I just can't. Maybe if I did, then maybe that'd be my favorite show. But I think that it's about, they play what's safe, and what's safe is disaster, gloom, and doom. Mm-hmm. And that's what it is, because they don't want to say, hey, there could be these little alien beings running around because they're raining down all over the United States. Their shit must have exploded in the atmosphere. And, literally it's like frogs. Who knows?
Yeah, frogs.
I mean, who knows, man? So that's why I think it wouldn't be as big, because they'd have to take a chance on it.
That article, there was an article, I don't know if I shared it with you guys, but it talked about the news and how, like, it was talking about how it's just coverage. Like the way they look at it, it's total entertainment.
You're talking about with the different actors in it too?
Yeah, well,
was it that?
No,
bit?
this wasn't relating. It was more of just like a generic, like a macro perspective on how, 40, 50 years ago, you had real news. You had journalists who would go out in the field. Oh, Sammy's here, and he's been out in the field he was doing this for 2 months, and he's got a story to share. You don't have that anymore, and what you have is this. It's all like it's basically it's dead in the mainstream sense. You have the Associated Press, which is just like an organization, and it's just all of these articles, but it's nobody even like going out and really doing investigative journalism. They go get coverage where it's like, oh, we need to get an insert of this and a shot of this, and we're going to loop these shots with this, and basically we need a great sign in and the sign off, and we're just going to make it look like a bunch of stuff's going on, and we know what's happening here. No, and it's just all this coverage, but it's not a lot of information. Mm-hmm. Like the amount of information being pressed, displayed, or pushed out towards you is minimum.
It's mostly visual stimuli.
It's visual stimuli, and they have scripts. They follow, just like you could say, well, an episode of Grey's Anatomy flows like this. An episode, if you're a writer in Hollywood and you write for a show, what they always do is they give you read these 5, 6 scripts before you write your spec, because they have a flow.
Tone.
They have a tone. They do this, and then this happens, and then there's the reversal, and then there's this. And it's the same thing with news of there's a script. There's this little bit. Now we're going to go to the Bill with the weather, and we're going to come over here with Joe with sports, and then we're going to go here, end with this. Oh, look, we're laughing. Oh, that was a funny joke you just made, Steve. And then show's over. But it's entertainment. It's scripted, and they have to fill all the scripted slots the same way you do with any other show.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all of these stories, like it have to fit, like, and that's why it's like they're easy sells. The same way you make all the doctor shows and you make all these cop shows, the same way they're like, it's just as simple as we need an accident. Mark, something happened today or yesterday, right? Yep. Let's go get give me a snapshot of it, and this will fill that slot. We need somebody getting stabbed. Let's stick that here. And something, let's show a courthouse this week here. Oh, there's something going on here. Okay, there we go. That's a show. Boom. And now we've made enough money for our advertising for that week, whatever.
Brings up a good question. I mean, do we as a species, I mean, I don't mean to quote the Matrix here, but do we define our reality in misery? Like, it seems like could we potentially have some sort of system of information that is brought into us that is essentially very, very positive? Or would we not be able to relate to that? Will we look at that and go, well, God, I know everybody's doing pretty good, but man, I know something bad has got to be going on somewhere. And that's a real question. You know, it's a very real question to ask, because who's to say that through over years of conditioning, whether it be consciously or subconsciously, that you haven't begun to think that, do you subconsciously look out negative things? Do you go, oh man, are you subconsciously looking for the conspiracy inside of things? Are you subconsciously becoming a believer in whatever you're into? So I think that's a good question. That's a very good question, because I know some folks that will tell you all day long how happy they want to be, but essentially you just look at them and go, you're not very happy, dude. You know, you're not trying too hard on that, you know. And I mean, you say it, and I know that that's a little different than what the initial point I brought up, but it does play into the whole role of, are we a species of defining our reality with a bombardment of misery, of just things going on around us? I don't know. Maybe that's going back to what Geoff said earlier in the show. If there is some type of disclosure, a landing, a revealing, or whatnot, maybe it would take some type of a shift in that direction to really have, you know, a different type of resonance, whether it's spiritually, energetically, whether it's just a tone that, you know, people start to have. I don't know.
I do feel that we are reflections of our like our I want to say our greater culture, but so like when you talk about misery, the news is a channel. It is a conduit for energies, for information, for tone, like you were talking about, right? And so right now it has a very negative tone. But I feel that is, this is part of, you know, rings within rings of conspiracies. I think that this is well understood at higher levels of understanding, higher up on a pyramid of knowledge, that when people are in fear, they consume more, they buy more, they're more controllable. When you're in a state of fear, you or lower energy, you're a better consumer. You're going to buy more shit you don't need. And so the news is a part of that, like, in a sense of propagating fear and misery. So you have this illusion that the world you live in is horrifying, because they're not doing stories on this awesome work being done here, or here's a shelter doing this for people. Yeah. If they did that, you would suddenly, in people's environments, they'd be like, wow, things are really getting good. So you could manipulate people like through however they receive their energy or their information of the world, which is mostly through people like the newspaper, or especially if you're very mainstream, you're just reading the Tribune, the Journal, whatever your city rag is. Plus, you watch the news, and you receive. This is your main source of information about your environment. Same way a baby is figuring out their reality and touching everything. That is how you determine your reality. You're looking around. You're seeing these things. This is what you're told, and it's also now that propagates out to all of your friends and family who you're interacting with. So if you're interacting with a lot of people who all drink from the same tap, this is your experience. Yeah. If you change the tap, and people up at the top, and this is where it's like if you had a peaceful society, a peaceful planet, and suddenly it was, this is going on. A bunch of countries are getting together, and we're going to start we're going to make sure nobody starves this year, ever again in this part of the world. We're gonna stop this. Whoa, you start getting like, boom, you start getting energized, and it changes your perception of this reality. You see other people in the world are doing things that are changing, and that they're starting to help other people, and it starts to.
It's less divide and conquer.
Yes,
It brings people together.
It starts bringing, and then you start going, well, what can I do maybe? And so all these little things from like, you start at the top level, but when it goes through the filter process, I feel that you get down to like an individual person who's just watching the news, and then you go from, you have a person who, in one parallel reality, they're getting hit with stabbings, shootings, this is wrong, blah, blah, blah. Let's talk more about the NDAA taking your rights and, Agenda 21 and they're living in like this state of, oh my God, I don't even want to be here. I don't want to live on this planet. And what are my children going to have to deal with? This is horrifying. But if you cross that with like a parallel reality where somebody is seeing all the positive things that are happening in the world and all of these wonderful things, they have a totally different energy about them, a totally different tone, the relation to their friends, family, neighbors. You totally transform their reality based on that the information that they are using to decode and understand the reality they think they're living in. So I think the misery thing is true, but only it's only accurate in the sense of where you could. I mean, right now I'm just going to say a locale, because if you live in a certain part of the world, you might not have, like, even when they talk about like Americans, like, oh, Americans have a certain tone about them, and you go to like Europe and like, well, we're not afraid of traveling. We let our kids go all over the place. Why is that? Why do we have those insecurities and these fears that you might say the traditional American has emanates from this cultural programming that we receive, and that is like we're products of that environment at a macro level.
You see people from Europe or other countries, in general, asking, why are there so many shootings in America?
Yeah.
I don't get it. What's with you people?
That's a good question.
I think we should.
What is wrong with us?
I think we should wrap up today's show.
Let's do it. All right. I don't know. How do I wrap up a show? What do I do, Matt?
Do you guys have a quote?
Bang on a
You said
drum.
you wanted to
I have
end with a quote. If you have an awesome quote.
I have a quote.
All right.
Okay. Since we were talking about UFOs and aliens, my quote will surround such. The U.S. government hasn't maintained secrecy regarding UFOs. It's been leaking out all over the place. But the way it's been handled is by denial, by denying the truth of the documents that have leaked, by attempting to show them as fraudulent, as bogus of some sort. There has been a very large disinformation and misinformation effort around this whole area, and one must wonder how better to hide something out in the open than just to say it isn't there. You're deceiving yourself if you think this is true, and yet there it is right in front of you. That's from Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who was the pilot of Apollo 14. So, that was our show. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.